Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to our latest episode of Musical Musings. This program airs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. We broadcast this program from Rajamakon, University of Technology, Pranakon. It'll come to you in two parts. The first part of our program is going to introduce a new song to you, and we'll talk about the main idea of that song, what it's about. And then we'll get into the second part of the program after we listen to the song. And in that second part, we will look at the lyrics. And we're especially going to focus on anything that might be difficult to understand, whether it's vocabulary, slang, idioms. Today, for example, we're going to talk about the word metaphors. So that's going to be how we do our program. Then we'll have news and the latest updates from the university.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Gary Gray, and I am your host for the Musical Musings program. I'm an English teacher at Rajamakon University of Technology, Pranakon, and I come from America. I've been here teaching for over 6 years. And for our program today, the song we're going to be doing is called The Rose. It is sung by Bette Midler. Bette Midler, she is 77 years old. She was born in 1945, so she's getting a little bit old. She is still alive. She's getting a little bit old. As anyone that listens to this program might know, we do focus quite a bit on some of the older songs. I like doing songs that maybe you're not familiar with, but I also know that a lot of older Western songs are liked here in Thailand. So these may also be songs that you will like if you haven't heard them before. So we do a lot of older performers. And Bette Midler, she is 77 years old, and she comes from America. And she actually started out her career as an actress. She was doing plays in New York in the 1960s. And as she got more and more popular by the late 1960s, she was on Broadway. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar with what that means, I'm sure most of you have heard of Broadway, but there's one street in New York City. The name of the street is actually Broadway. That's where all of the biggest performances are shown. So you can be off Broadway and doing plays. There are other places where you can perform. Or you can be on Broadway. That's where the bigger stars are, the bigger performers are. So by the late 1960s, as she was getting more popular, Bette Midler ended up on Broadway. She really started becoming famous around 1970 when she was performing, usually like in the evenings, maybe after her performance or something like that, at a place called the Continental Baths. It's a really weird way for her to become famous because the Continental Baths was a bathhouse where a lot of gay men would go. And for those of you who don't know what a bathhouse is, well, I will let you look that up. It is a very innocent place in most of Asian culture. They have a lot of them in Asia, especially popular, I believe, in Korea and maybe Japan as well. Very popular here. Maybe not so much in Thailand. I haven't seen very many of them. But in Western culture, it kind of has a little bit of a different meaning. So it's a weird place for her to be performing. But she was. And there's where she did most of her singing. She mostly sung at this place called the Continental Baths. She was mostly singing. All right, so that's where she started getting really popular as a singer. And then that was around 1970. So she just continued through the 70s performing. She was doing her Broadway shows, her singing. on the side that she was doing. And then her career really took off in 1979 with a musical drama. So this was a movie. And it was a movie that used the song we're doing today. And in fact, the movie has the same name. The name of the movie is The Rose. All right. And since then, she has done many more movies and has had other hit songs. Some of her popular movies are Outrageous Fortune, Ruthless People, Big Business, Beaches, Hocus Pocus. She's got a bunch more. And some of her famous songs are Wind Beneath My Wings and From a Distance. Those are, I can't say recent hits. Those are still quite old. But those are a little more recent than some of her older hits that she had. Those are a little more recent. And they're both more recent than The Rose. Okay, so The Rose, that's our song we're going to do today. And like I said, it actually came out in 1979 along with the movie. Now, a lot of times songs will come out before a movie and then they'll build a movie around it and something like that. This is kind of an example of both. I mean, the song did exist before 1979, but it really wasn't put out to the public until 1979. It was written by a woman named Amanda McBroom in 1977. So again, the song was around before the movie. But the song was not sung by a performer and put out to the public until 1979. Amanda McBroom, you probably don't know that name. She is not very popular among just ordinary people, but people in the industry, she is quite famous. She has written a lot of songs. So Amanda McBroom has written a lot of songs for performers. She doesn't do a whole lot of performing herself, which is why she's not really that famous. So she does like this. She wrote The Rose, and then Bette Midler performed it. That's kind of what Amanda McBroom does. She writes a lot of songs for people. Okay, so again, it wasn't really written for the movie, but that's how it became popular. All right, so we're not going to talk too much more about it. It doesn't have a whole lot of meaning behind it. It's about love. I mean, there's meaning behind it, but it's about love, and it went along with a drama love story movie. So it's about the drama of love. And I don't want to talk too much because we have quite a few metaphors in within this song that we need to discuss in the second half of our program. All right, so what is a metaphor? That's when you say something that means something a little different than what the words sound like. For example, in the very first couple lines of the song, it says, some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Love is a river? That's no. Yeah, because this is a metaphor, a river that drowns the tender reed. That's a metaphor. Okay, so we're going to talk about what that means in the second half. So, let's get on to the song. For those of you who are joining us on YouTube, we will have a link for you in the upper right corner to go to the song. You can click on that and then click back here to the video, to our video here, to see the rest of it. We have to do that for copyright reasons. Anyone else listening on the radio or through streaming, we're just going to get right to the song. So, let's go to the really good song here.
Musical musings, musical musings, musical musings, musical musings.
Welcome back. All right, so again, I told you this song was basically about love. So let's get right into the lyrics here, because again, we have several metaphors in this song that we need to talk about. So the song starts out, some say love, it is a river that drowns the tender reed. Okay, so love, it's a river that drowns the tender reed. What does that mean? Okay, a reed that is like a weed, like a piece of grass that grows in water. So it's drowning the tender reed. What does that mean? All right, when you drown something, obviously that's not good. It ends up dying. So what they're saying here is something bad. It's like overwhelming. So it's drowning the tender reed. In other words, it overwhelms it. Sometimes love can overwhelm you. Okay, the next couple lines. Some say love, it is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Okay, so love is a razor that leaves your soul to bleed. Okay, a razor? I think you probably know that word. Maybe not. That's the sharp thing that you will shave with. That's what a razor is, okay? So it leaves your soul to bleed. In other words, it hurts sometimes. Love hurts. You know, you can have your heart broken. Someone you love decides that they don't love you anymore, so they break up with you. Or maybe if it's like a family member, this is more talking about love between girlfriend, boyfriend, something like that. But even if it's like a family member, you know, when they die, then you end up being really sad. For instance, for me, I had my brother pass away about a year and a half ago, and that was a very difficult time for me. It still is, even now, even a year and a half later. So what they're saying is that your love, it means you can get hurt, so it leaves your soul to bleed because you're at risk of getting hurt, and the love is what's causing it. So the love is the razor that's going to cut your soul. Okay, next two lines. Some say love, it is a hunger, an endless aching need. Okay, so love is a hunger, an endless aching need. Okay, that one should be a little easier to understand. Obviously, it doesn't mean hunger, like real hunger. That would be food. You need food. So what it's saying here is that, but it does say an endless aching need. So it's saying that you need it. Okay, so that part's kind of easy to understand. Most people kind of need some love in their life. Not everyone. You have some weird people out there that can live their life alone and still be happy. But most people need some love in their life, even if all they have is like a pet or something. Most people need something in their life to love and love them back. All right, so all of these things are kind of bad things. I mean, saying that you need love, I guess that's not so bad, but it's basically but it's still a negative emotion that they're talking about here because they're saying you're hungry for it. So it drowns the tender reed, so it's overwhelming, it leaves the soul to bleed, you can really get hurt from it, and then you have this hunger, you really need it. So it's all these kind of negative things. And then this verse ends with a positive metaphor. Well, sort of. Again, this went along with a love drama movie, so it's kind of positive. Depends how you think about it. And those last couple lines are, I say love, it is a flower, and you, its only seed. Okay, so I think you know what all those words mean. A seed, you put it in the ground, and then a plant grows out of it. And they're saying for this case, it's going to be a flower. So a flower grows from that seed. So this is, I guess, good. I guess. You have to kind of think about this. This is a little tricky, right? It sounds good, right? You're the person I love. That's what it's saying here. Love is a flower, you're its seed. So that's the love that this person singing this song needs. They need the other person, the person they're singing it to. So that sounds good, but you also have to remember what they sang before that, as far as how it can be overwhelming, you can get hurt by it. So this person singing this might have already been hurt by this other person. Maybe. It's a little hard to tell. And as I've told you on our program many times before, the singers a lot of times like to leave the interpretation up to you. So it's not clear here. You'd have to go and watch the movie to see how they interpret it. And even that's just going to be their interpretation, however they see this song. So this could actually be a negative thing because the person singing the song might have already had this hurt and been overwhelmed, but they still feel this need, and so they're going back to this person who hurt them already, which usually is not healthy. I mean, sometimes it can work out if the other person is sorry and they correct their behavior and whatever. I mean, every relationship is different, so whatever happens. It can work out. It can be okay, but a lot of times it's not healthy for you to keep going back to someone who's hurt you. So this might actually be a bad thing, where this person is saying that they still need this other person who has been hurting them. So it's hard to say whether this is a good line or a bad line, as far as positive or negative. Okay, that first verse is where most of the metaphors are. Now we get to the second verse. All right? It's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. All right, that's sort of a metaphor, I guess. The heart learning to dance. What does that mean? Your heart doesn't dance, it's inside you. It just means being joyful. Dancing around, you're usually happy. So if your heart is afraid of breaking, you're afraid of getting hurt again, you usually end up being very reserved. In other words, you're not going to open yourself up. And so it's very difficult to feel that joy because you're always worried, what's going to go wrong? What's going to go wrong? What's going to go wrong? You're afraid of being heartbroken. You're always worried. So it's hard to ever really be truly joyful. So it's the heart afraid of breaking that never learns to dance. All right, the next two lines. It's the dream afraid of waking that never takes the chance. Okay, the dream afraid of waking that never takes the chance. Okay, so you're dreaming about something. We all have dreams in our life, things you want to do. We're probably talking about dreams here in terms of love, since that's what this song is about. So they probably have this dream about how a relationship might go or something like that, or finding the right person. So if all you ever do is live kind of inside of that dream, so you're afraid of it waking, you're not probably going to take the chance to try to make it happen because you're afraid. You go back to the previous line of your heart getting broken. You're afraid it's not going to work. So you never do what it takes. So you just sit there and do nothing, which means, of course, that you're never going to reach your dream either. The dream is just always in your mind. So that's not a good thing. So the song is encouraging you to take that chance. You have to understand that if all you ever do is dream about your dream and you never do something about it, it's not going to happen. It's not going to come true. Okay, the next line. It's the one who won't be taken, who cannot seem to give. Okay, that's kind of the same idea here as someone not opening up, like we saw in the first couple lines. If you won't be taken, it means you're not willing to give of yourself, right? That's why you're not going to be taken, because you're very protective. It means you're not opening your heart. Now, of course, nobody wants to be taken in the way that this means. That is negative. Yes, just like your heart being broken, like it talks about in the first couple lines. That is negative. No one wants that. But what this is saying is you have to be willing to take that risk. Because if you're not able to allow yourself to be taken, you're not going to be able to give. And of course, we're talking about love. So, I mean, you may say, well, who wants to give? You want to receive, right? But we're talking about love. So, of course, in order to expect to receive it, you have to give it because it's a mutual thing. So, if you cannot give it, you're not going to get it. So, once again, they're encouraging the person listening to this song to open up, be willing to give of their heart. Otherwise, they're never going to receive the love back. All right, and that verse ends with, and the soul afraid of dying that never learns to live. Okay, that one seems a little simpler. If you're afraid of dying, you don't learn to live, right? We kind of have already talked about that with some of these other things, right? When we're talking about it's the dream afraid of waking that never takes the chance. You need to, if you want the dream to come true, you need to do something. You need to pursue it. It's the same idea here. Are you really living your life if you're not out there trying to make it happen? So if you're too afraid, the soul afraid of dying. In other words, it's kind of the same as the heartbreak. Your soul is, you think of your soul dying, that would be like, losing love. That would be like your heart getting crushed. So if you're afraid of that, you may not pursue the love. You might not go after the love because you're afraid of your heart getting broken. So if your soul is afraid of dying, you're not going to learn to live. You're not going to go out and try to find that love that makes you happy. You're not going to go out and find that happiness. So these are all kind of sad things in this verse as well. But it's actually trying to be encouraging here. So this song is not, this song is generally considered to be a positive song, even though it sounds so negative so far. In fact, as you'll see with the third verse, which we'll get to in a moment, there are only 3 verses, so we're about to get there. As you'll see with the third verse, it actually ends on a positive kind of vision. So this is actually a positive song. It sounds so terrible so far. Talks about all the hurt that love causes in the first verse. And in this next verse, it's all about how if you don't do something, you're not going to get to where you want to get to. But again, it's actually trying to encourage you to do that. It's encouraging you by warning you. That's why it sounds negative, because it's saying what's going to happen if you don't do it. So if you're afraid of your heart breaking, you're never going to learn to dance. Your heart's never going to learn to feel joy. So it's that sort of thing. That's why it feels negative, because it's from a negative side. It's warning you of the bad thing that could happen. All right, so let's get to the third verse. And again, you'll see it ends a little more upbeat here. All right, so we start with, when the night has been too lonely and the road has been too long, and you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong. Okay, so what does all that mean? The night has been too lonely? All right, well, that kind of makes sense. You're alone. Usually at night, that's when you're with if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that's usually when you'd be with them. Most people have work or school or something like that during the day. So in the evening, you hang out with the person you love. And again, it's not, even though this is about boyfriend, girlfriend sort of thing, husband and wife, something like that, it could be anything that you love or anyone you love. So you're usually with them at night, because most of us, like I said, are working or doing something like that during the day. So then it says, and the road has been too long. When we talk about the road being too long, it means you're tired. You've been through a lot. That's what it means when it's been a long road. You've traveled far, and it means you've traveled far in life. It doesn't actually mean you've gone a long distance. No, that's not what that actually means. It means your life has been difficult. You've gone far with your life, and it's been tiring. So we're talking about being lonely, when the night has been too lonely, and tired. So once again, the song sounds negative, right? And you think that love is only for the lucky and the strong. All right, that one makes sense. That line is pretty easy to understand. That you don't think you're going to get any love. You think love is not for you. You have to be lucky or strong. And you don't feel like either of those right now. In fact, with the road has been too long, you're probably not feeling lucky or strong. You're feeling weak, tired, unlucky. Nothing ever goes your way. That's probably how you're feeling with that line of the song. Okay, so now we end with the last few lines, and you'll see that it kind of turns more positive. All right, so the last 4 lines are, just remember in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, lies the seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. All right, that whole thought is almost like a metaphor by itself. Because what it's saying is, remember, in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows. Okay, so what it's talking about there, it's not really talking about the winter or snow. But usually people feel very miserable in the winter. Some people don't. I actually like snow. I don't mind the winter. But a lot of people are really miserable in the winter. It's too cold. The snow kind of keeps you inside sometimes, so it can be lonely. It's just, ugh. A lot of people don't like it. So what he's talking about there is, what this song is talking about is when you're feeling terrible. Middle of the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, you're just feeling terrible. So we're talking about this person here, you know? The night's been too lonely, the road's been too long. So that's how they're feeling. Like it's winter, far beneath the bitter snows. So what they're saying is, in the winter, underneath the snow, that's where the seeds are from the last season that fell. They will sit there, and in the spring, when the sun comes out and it's warmer, lies the seed that with the sun's love, the seed will grow and blossom and turn into the rose. So in other words, there's always going to be hope. Whenever you're feeling bad, it can turn around. And this is also saying that the bad things can actually cause it to turn around. And they kind of can. When you think about the previous verse, it's talking about opening up your heart, things like that. If something bad happens to you, you're willing to open yourself up, talk about it. You know, people will feel some sympathy for you. They'll understand you. And through that, you might actually find new relationships, even if it's just friends, people willing to listen to you. Might just be friends, but who knows? You might even find that new love. And it came from the bad thing. So in the winter, far beneath the bitter snows, there's that seed that with the sun's love in the spring becomes the rose. So this is actually a very positive song. It's a positive song about a negative situation, which is why it sounds so negative. It talks a lot about that negative situation first. So it sounds really sad. A broken-hearted person, bad relationship, whatever. And then it warns them about not being too closed off. But then in the end, it says, you know, you take those bad things, and eventually you can turn it into something good. So it's a hopeful song. It's an encouraging song. All right, so this song is actually very popular, and that's it for the song. There's no real chorus here. There's the 3 verses, just like that. All right, and I would encourage you to go check out more of Bette Midler's songs. Wind Beneath My Wings and From a Distance were also very popular songs. They're 2 wonderful songs from Bette Midler. And also, if you want to watch some of her movies, a lot of her movies are pretty good too. I personally would recommend Hocus Pocus. It's a movie that a lot of people love. It's sort of a kid's movie, but there's a lot of humor in it that isn't really like little children humor. So it's really a movie that anyone can find funny. It's a fun movie. It's a cute, fun movie. And Midler is very talented. We talked about how she started her career as an actress, and now we're doing a song by her. She can also do comedy. She's kind of a comedy actress. I have actually been to see Bette Midler in person, and a lot of her stuff that she does is kind of funny. She likes to do a lot of comedy, and sometimes she'll incorporate the comedy even into her songs. So she's really talented, really talented. She can act, sing, do comedy. So I encourage you to check out more of her work. All right. Thank you for joining us for today's Musical Musings program. This has been your host, Gary Gray, and I'll ask you to please stay with us And tune back in next week as well for another great song. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel.
Musical musings, musical musings.